Chapter 1. Exiled to the Jungle Planet. Captain Alex Torres could still hear the echo of the Council's verdict ringing in his ears. By unanimous decision, Captain Alex Torres is hereby exiled to Zyra, 9, never to return. The sentencing had been swift, the accusations vague: treason, rebellion, threat to the order of the galaxy. But Alex knew it wasn't justice. It was politics. He had served as a loyal soldier for years, carrying out orders without question, until he stumbled upon a covert operation involving the Council's own corruption. When he tried to expose it, they responded by condemning him to this death sentence. Stripped of his rank and identity, he was left on Zyra, 9, with nothing more than a survival kit, a blade, and enough rations to last a few days. The moment the drop ship's engines roared off into the sky, leaving him alone in the jungle, he felt the cold weight of isolation sink into his bones. The Council had chosen this planet for a reason. Zyra, 9 was a place of thick, untamed jungles, towering trees that blotted out the sun, and a host of unknown creatures lurking in the shadows. It was an ecosystem where everything seemed to have evolved for the sole purpose of devouring whatever crossed its path. He was meant to disappear here, to vanish without a trace. But Alex wasn't about to give up. He was a soldier, and if he could survive on desolate moons and frozen wastelands during his years of service, he could survive this. Yet, as he trekked through the dense undergrowth, pushing aside thick vines and fending off strange insectoid creatures with vibrant, metallic wings, he realized just how alien this world truly was. The air was dense and humid, filled with the heavy scent of decay and life interwoven. The sounds around him were an endless cacophony, from the distant roars of predators to the chirping of insect-like creatures hidden in the foliage. By nightfall, Alex had managed to construct a makeshift shelter from branches and vines, anchoring it against a massive tree trunk for support. Exhausted, he settled in, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling that he was being watched. Every so often, he would hear rustling, faint whispers in an unfamiliar language, the kind of sound that would make even the bravest soldier tense. And yet, every time he investigated, he found nothing, just the silent jungle, stretching endlessly in every direction. It was on the second night that things took a strange turn. He awoke to find his meager stash of food supplies missing. In their place, however, lay a neatly arranged pile of fruits and herbs he didn't recognize. At first, he thought it might be some kind of trap, perhaps poisonous or designed to weaken him. But hunger was a powerful motivator, and with caution, he tasted a small piece of one fruit. It was unlike anything he had ever tasted, a blend of sweetness and spice that energized him in a way no ration pack ever had. Whoever or whatever had left it knew the jungle better than he did. Days passed in much the same manner, with Alex adapting to the rhythm of survival on Zyra, 9. He would hunt small creatures, boil water from nearby streams, and forage for plants he'd tentatively identified as edible. And each night, he would awaken to find more food left for him, the mysterious fruits and herbs growing increasingly varied and elaborate. It was as though his unseen benefactor were testing his ability to trust them, revealing themselves in subtle ways but never fully coming into view. Finally, on the 5th night, as he lay in his makeshift shelter, he heard the voices more clearly than ever. They were close, almost too close. His instincts kicked in, and he sat up, blade in hand, peering into the darkness. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady but strained. The jungle seemed to hold its breath, the noises of the night fading into silence. A figure stepped into the dim light, followed by another, and then another. Tall, lithe, and strikingly alien. The figures had the elegance of a predatory species, their bodies adorned with vines, feathers, and what appeared to be markings painted directly onto their skin. They were female, each one more breathtakingly unique than the last, with piercing eyes that glowed faintly in the low light, observing him with a mix of curiosity and caution. The tallest of them, a woman with dark, braided hair intertwined with purple leaves, stepped forward. She held out her hand, palm up, as though presenting herself. She spoke in a language he couldn't understand, her voice soft but commanding. Alex lowered his blade, his heart pounding as he tried to make sense of this surreal moment. Here he was, exiled to die, yet standing before him was a tribe of beautiful, otherworldly beings who appeared to be offering him something. Unsure of what else to do, he placed his hand over his heart, hoping the gesture would communicate a sense of peace. The woman tilted her head, observing him with a glimmer of intrigue in her eyes, before nodding to her companions. In a series of quick, graceful movements, they surrounded him, inspecting him from every angle as though he were a curiosity from another world. As the night deepened, Alex began to piece together that these women were not merely inhabitants of Zyra 9, but part of a highly organized and deeply connected society. Their movements were almost telepathic, each one responding to the slightest signal from the leader. They communicated with gestures and subtle changes in posture, a silent language of trust and respect. It was then that he realized they hadn't simply stumbled upon him, they had been watching him all along, studying his every move, his every decision in the jungle. And for reasons he couldn't yet understand, they had decided he was worthy of something more than exile. As dawn broke, the leader reached out her hand, motioning for him to follow. It was a clear invitation, an offer to step beyond survival and into the heart of their world. Though wary, Alex accepted, feeling a strange thrill as he walked among these Amazonian warriors, into a part of the jungle he had never dared to explore. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change him, perhaps the fate of his people forever. Chapter 2. The Amazonian Aliens. Following the mysterious leader and her tribe of silent yet graceful warriors, Alex felt a surge of anticipation mixed with a twinge of unease. His survival instincts urged him to stay alert, yet something in the way these women moved fluid, purposeful, and unthreatened hinted that he was in the presence of a deeply intelligent and organized society. He sensed no overt hostility from them, only a quiet curiosity tempered by caution. They led him through a labyrinthine path within the jungle, winding between towering trees whose canopies stretched high above, casting everything in a filtered green light. Vines and foliage hung in thick curtains, and Alex could barely make out the trails they took, each footfall as silent as if they were walking on air. He stumbled occasionally, his boots catching on roots and moss-covered stones, while his escorts moved effortlessly, barely disturbing a single leaf. Finally, they arrived at what he could only describe as a hidden village, though it bore little resemblance to any settlement he had ever seen. Giant trees, some with trunks as wide as a house, had been hollowed and transformed into dwellings, their bark carved with intricate symbols and adorned with bioluminescent plants that emitted a soft, ethereal glow. Rope bridges stretched between the trees, connecting platforms adorned with woven mats, herbal bundles, and items crafted from wood, bone, and stone. The village teemed with life, and as they entered, Alex saw more of the tribe women and children of various ages, all adorned with the same natural, vine-like clothing and tribal markings. Some stopped to watch him, their eyes reflecting both curiosity and caution. It was clear from their expressions that an outsider was an unusual sight here. As he looked around, the tall warrior who had led him here, who he began to think of as the leader, gestured for him to sit on a woven mat near a massive tree at the center of the village. He complied, lowering himself onto the mat and placing his hands on his knees, trying to convey respect and humility. The leader sat across from him, while the rest of the warriors formed a loose circle around them, maintaining a quiet, watchful presence. The leader spoke again, her voice calm and steady, though the words were still a mystery to him. Alex watched her gestures, trying to interpret her meaning, but it was clear she wanted more than just observation. She motioned to herself, then tapped her chest, as though introducing herself. Understanding, Alex responded in kind, tapping his chest and saying, "Alex." He pointed to her with a questioning look. She tilted her head, a small smile gracing her lips, and said a word he assumed to be her name, "Rena." The other warriors murmured softly, repeating her name as though in affirmation. Rena. The name held a resonance, a weight that felt both ancient and significant. He could feel her studying him intently, her dark, intelligent eyes searching for any sign of hostility or deception. Over the next few days, Alex found himself immersed in the customs and daily life of the tribe. Though communication was limited, he learned quickly through observation, mimicking their actions and gestures as best he could. The tribe was not merely a group of women surviving in the jungle. They were deeply attuned to the rhythms of their environment, utilizing plants, animals, and the land itself in ways that seemed almost mystical. He witnessed them harvesting rare herbs and roots, using them to create salves and poultices that healed wounds faster than any medicine he had encountered. He watched as they hunted, not with firearms or even the traditional weapons of his own people, but with finely crafted spears and arrows that they wielded with astonishing accuracy and grace. Each movement was precise, silent, respectful, and every animal taken was honored with a ritual that paid homage to the spirit of the jungle. Rena seemed to take a particular interest in him, perhaps intrigued by his resilience or his awkward attempts to integrate with the tribe. She would bring him strange fruits, roots, and delicacies that he had never tasted, watching with amusement as he tried them. Some were bitter, others sweet, and a few were so pungent he nearly choked, though he forced a smile each time, earning a laugh from Rena that was both melodious and grounding in a way he hadn't experienced in years. Gradually, a bond formed between them, one rooted in mutual curiosity and respect. Rena would show him small things, the right way to hold their handcrafted tools, how to make use of the jungle's natural resources, even how to mimic some of their basic words. Though he couldn't speak their language fluently, he learned enough to convey simple ideas and emotions. She seemed impressed by his adaptability, and he was struck by her quiet intelligence and unyielding strength. One evening, as the village gathered around a fire for a communal meal, Alex sensed a change in the atmosphere. The conversations, though still foreign to him, took on a more serious tone, and Rena's gaze became focused and intense. She gestured for him to follow, leading him toward a secluded part of the village where a small, natural spring bubbled up from the ground. She knelt beside it, and with a solemn expression, placed her hand on his shoulder. Speaking softly, she uttered a word that sounded like trials and gestured to the spring, then back to him. He understood immediately this was a test, a rite of passage, perhaps a way to prove himself worthy of truly becoming a part of the tribe. The thought both thrilled and unnerved him. He had survived the jungle on his own, yes, but this was different. He would need to gain their trust fully, and it seemed that this trial was his opportunity to do so. The trial, he soon learned, involved several stages, each designed to test his endurance, courage, and adaptability. The first challenge required him to navigate through the jungle alone, relying only on the skills he had learned from watching the tribe. He had to find a specific herb, one that Rena had shown him once before, a plant with vibrant blue leaves that was used for its medicinal properties. The herb grew in dangerous, predator-rich areas, and finding it would require both patience and stealth. Setting out early the next morning, Alex moved through the jungle with a newfound sense of purpose. He avoided the usual paths, sticking to the shadows, using the cover of foliage to mask his scent and sound. The jungle was a living, breathing entity, filled with the sharp cries of alien birds, the rustling of unseen creatures, and the faint growl of predators lurking in the underbrush. After hours of careful tracking, he spotted the blue-leaved plant nestled between two rocks near a stream. But as he reached for it, he heard a low growl from behind. Turning slowly, he found himself face to face with a creature that resembled a large feline, its coat a blend of greens and browns that camouflaged it perfectly with the jungle. The creature's eyes glinted with predatory intent, and Alex knew he had only moments to act. Remembering the techniques he had seen the warriors use, he picked up a nearby stick, held it out, and widened his stance, trying to appear larger. He maintained eye contact, a silent standoff that seemed to stretch on forever. Finally, with a snarl, the creature backed down, slinking away into the shadows, its eyes never leaving him until it disappeared entirely. Breathing a sigh of relief, Alex carefully harvested the herb, securing it in his pack before heading back. When he returned to the village with the herb, the tribe greeted him with nods and murmurs of approval. Rena's expression was one of pride and satisfaction, and for the first time, she reached out, clasping his hand in a gesture of respect. It was a small victory, but one that marked his growing acceptance within their society. That evening, Rena sat beside him by the fire, and though they spoke few words, the understanding between them deepened. He was not just an exile surviving in a hostile jungle. He was a man finding a new purpose, a new place among a people who saw him not as an enemy, but as an equal. And as he drifted off to sleep that night, he realized that he was no longer counting the days until rescue. For the first time, he was beginning to feel Home. Chapter 3, Bonds and Challenges. Alex awoke with a renewed sense of belonging, an emotion he hadn't felt in years. His past life as a soldier, a pawn in the corrupt games of galactic politics, felt distant. Here, on Zyra 9, he had found purpose. The tribe, the Amazonian women of this alien world, had become more than just the enigmatic people who had spared him. They had become his allies, even friends. And one woman, Rena, had slowly grown into something even more profound in his mind. Her presence, her wisdom, and her strength left a mark on him that he couldn't ignore. His bond with Rena had deepened since the successful completion of his trial. She continued to teach him the ways of her people, guiding him in their customs, language, and survival techniques. The language barrier between them was slowly breaking down. He was learning their spoken language, word by word, gesture by gesture, and with it, he gained insight into their culture. The tribe's language had no word for I or mine. Instead, it was filled with phrases that emphasized community and mutual respect. In Rena's world, no one survived alone. Everyone's survival depended on the group's unity. As days passed, Alex became aware of a larger reality in the jungle, one that extended beyond the tribe's hidden village. Zyra 9 was not only a world teeming with exotic flora and fauna, but also one fraught with danger. Predators lurked in the shadows, and the jungle itself seemed to shift and pulse, as if aware of every presence within it. Yet there were also threats beyond the natural ones. One night, as Alex sat beside the fire, he noticed a tension rippling through the tribe. Warriors moved silently from hut to hut, preparing weapons and checking supplies. Rena approached him, her expression serious. She spoke in fragmented phrases, carefully selecting words he understood. Outsiders. Come. We. Protect. Home. Her tone was laced with urgency, and though her explanation was brief, Alex understood. The tribe faced a threat from outsiders, otherworldly invaders or scavengers who came to plunder the jungle's resources, unaware or uncaring of the people who called it home. For Rena and her tribe, defending their land was not merely about survival. It was a sacred duty, a commitment that extended beyond their immediate needs. And now, with Alex as part of their society, he felt that same protective instinct rise within him. He offered his help, a gesture that Rena acknowledged with a nod, her gaze lingering on him with an intensity that spoke of both gratitude and something deeper. The following day, the tribe's warriors gathered in preparation, their faces painted in patterns that seemed to blend with the jungle's hues. Alex joined them, his own face marked with similar designs, guided by Rena's steady hand. She showed him how to wield one of their traditional spears, a weapon that was both delicate and deadly, crafted from jungle materials that made it lighter and sharper than anything he had used in his past. Together, they moved through the jungle in silence, a unit that communicated through subtle hand signals and glances. Alex's heart pounded as he stepped into the unknown, side by side with Rena and the other warriors. They soon spotted the intruders, a group of heavily armed men, humans from a nearby star system, scavengers who saw Zyra 9 as a goldmine of resources ripe for the taking. The intruders' technology was impressive, but their arrogance blinded them to the dangers of the jungle. One of the tribe's scouts, a wiry woman with quick reflexes, signaled for the group to take cover. They watched as the intruders set up camp, unloading equipment that emitted a low hum, disturbing the natural sounds of the jungle. Rena exchanged a look with Alex, her eyes conveying a message that transcended language. He nodded, understanding that their plan required precision and stealth, not brute force. The tribe's warriors moved as one, weaving through the underbrush, using the jungle's natural cover to their advantage. Alex stayed close to Rena, his senses heightened. They waited until the intruders had settled, becoming complacent in their supposed safety. At Rena's signal, the warriors sprang into action, surrounding the camp in a well-coordinated strike. The intruders, caught off guard, struggled to react as spears flew and the warriors closed in, using the jungle's shadows to their advantage. Alex engaged one of the men, deflecting a clumsy blow and taking him down with a swift, practiced move. His military training resurfaced, blending seamlessly with the tactics he had learned from the tribe. Rena fought beside him, her movements fluid and precise, each strike purposeful. Together, they defended the jungle, an unspoken rhythm guiding them as they moved in unison. Within minutes, the intruders were subdued, their arrogance shattered as they faced the unexpected strength of the jungle's inhabitants. Those who survived were disarmed and sent running back into the jungle, their equipment destroyed, a warning left in their minds. Zyra, 9 was no place for the uninvited. After the battle, Alex and Rena stood among the tribe, their faces and bodies marked with the residue of the fight. Yet there was no celebration. The warriors silently gathered to honor the jungle, performing a ritual that acknowledged both the lives lost and the preservation of their world. Alex joined them, following Rena's lead as they bowed to the earth, a gesture of respect for the life and power that resided in the jungle. Later that evening, as the tribe sat around the fire, Alex found himself beside Rena once more. She looked at him, a smile playing at her lips, her gaze holding a mixture of pride and gratitude. She spoke softly, her words clearer now as he pieced together their meaning. You fight, like us, jungle, in your heart. He nodded, feeling the truth of her words resonate within him. This place, this people, had become a part of him in a way he hadn't anticipated. He reached for her hand, a gesture that she accepted, her fingers intertwining with his in a silent acknowledgement of their bond. For a moment, the sounds of the jungle faded, leaving only the warmth of the fire and the connection they shared. But their peace was short-lived. A scout rushed into the camp, her expression frantic, signaling Rena and the other leaders. In hurried words, she explained that a larger force was approaching, a team of mercenaries sent by the same council that had exiled Alex, likely sent to eliminate him once and for all. This time, they weren't here to scavenge. They were here to destroy. Rena's face hardened, her warrior spirit reigniting. She looked to Alex, a question in her eyes. This was more than just a defense of their land. It was a battle for survival against an enemy that would stop at nothing to claim victory. And this time, Alex knew the fight was personal. The council that had betrayed him was coming to finish what they had started, but he wasn't alone anymore. He had Rena, the tribe, and a reason to fight beyond mere survival. With a nod, he stood beside her, preparing himself for the battle ahead. The tribe rallied around them, ready to face the approaching threat with every weapon and skill they possessed. As they began their preparations, Alex felt a deep sense of purpose filling him, a sense that this was where he was meant to be. Together, they would face the coming storm, a united force of human and alien standing against a common foe. And as he looked into Rena's determined eyes, he knew that, no matter the outcome, he had found something worth fighting for. Chapter 4. A New Purpose. The night air was tense with anticipation as the tribe prepared for the battle of their lives. Fires were extinguished, weapons checked, and scouts deployed to monitor the advancing threat. Alex moved through the village, helping as he could, his instincts sharpened by the knowledge that this fight was about more than just survival. This was his chance to protect the people who had welcomed him, and to finally confront the Intergalactic Council that had discarded him like a piece of disposable property. Rena was by his side, her face painted with intricate symbols of protection, a reminder of the deep cultural connection her people had with the jungle. She was a vision of both strength and grace, her eyes fierce yet calm. Alex couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as he watched her direct the warriors, her voice a steady anchor amidst the preparations. She turned to him, and without words, they exchanged a look that conveyed everything they felt: determination, respect, and an unspoken promise to stand together. The mercenaries arrived at dawn, their approach a brutal contrast to the serenity of the jungle. Large armored vehicles tore through the underbrush, crushing plants and scaring off wildlife with their loud engines and heavy weapons. These weren't mere scavengers. They were a well-equipped, tactical force, mercenaries hired by the council to execute Alex and destroy anyone who harbored him. The council wasn't merely intent on silencing him, they wanted to make a statement, a brutal show of power meant to intimidate any who might resist. The mercenaries advanced with a calculated ruthlessness, but they were unaware of the jungle's silent defenders lying in wait. Alex and Rena led the first wave, crouched low in the thick undergrowth, communicating through gestures they had practiced. The jungle had become their ally, each branch, each vine, a part of their tactical advantage. The tribe's warriors blended seamlessly with the foliage, their faces painted and their bodies moving in near silence, a perfect contrast to the mercenaries' clumsy, noisy march. When the mercenaries reached a narrow valley surrounded by dense foliage, Rena gave the signal. The tribe struck with the precision of a hunting pack. Arrows flew from hidden positions, targeting the mercenaries' exposed areas, their armor offering little protection against the well-aimed strikes. Alex joined in, his spear in hand, moving with the agility and silence he had learned from the tribe. The first mercenary he encountered barely had time to react before Alex took him down, neutralizing him with a swift, practiced strike. The mercenaries scrambled, their formation breaking as they tried to identify where the attacks were coming from. They were used to frontal assaults, not this coordinated, guerrilla-style warfare. In the chaos, Rena led her warriors with a ferocity that seemed to embody the very spirit of the jungle. She moved through the enemy ranks, her movements fluid and precise, every strike landing with lethal accuracy. Alex found himself caught between awe and adrenaline as he fought beside her, their movements synchronized, their silent communication forged by the countless hours they had trained together. Despite their early success, the mercenaries were resilient, regrouping and adapting. They had superior firepower and advanced technology, and soon they began using drones to scan for hidden fighters. The jungle lit up with sporadic flashes of gunfire, the sound shattering the early morning calm. Several of the tribe's warriors were hit, their cries of pain blending with the angry calls of the jungle's creatures. Seeing his allies fall filled Alex with a new resolve. He knew the mercenaries' tactics they were designed to intimidate and overwhelm. But he also knew their weakness. They depended on their technology and structured formations. If he could disrupt their coordination, even briefly, it might give the tribe the opening they needed. Breaking from his cover, Alex sprinted toward the mercenaries' central position, using the thick undergrowth to shield his approach. He could see the lead officer, barking orders as he coordinated the assault. Alex picked up a stone and hurled it into a nearby thicket, creating a diversion that drew the officer's attention. Taking advantage of the distraction, Alex moved swiftly, disabling one of the drones with his spear. Sparks flew, and the machine sputtered to the ground. The mercenaries' formation faltered as their visual support vanished, and in that moment of disarray, Rena's warriors surged forward, striking with renewed intensity. Alex joined them, his adrenaline fueling each movement as he fought alongside his new allies. For the first time since his exile, he felt a sense of true purpose beyond duty or survival. A purpose tied to the people he was protecting and the bonds he had forged. The mercenaries, realizing they were losing ground, attempted to retreat, but the tribe's warriors cut off their escape routes with a precision that left no avenue open. The jungle itself seemed to come alive, as if in response to the people who had called it home for generations. Rena's warriors moved like shadows, closing in on the remaining mercenaries, who now wore expressions of fear rather than arrogance. As the last of the mercenaries fell, Alex felt a surge of victory tempered by a profound respect for the tribe's resilience. They had defended their home without sacrificing their honor, showing strength tempered with mercy. Those mercenaries who surrendered were spared, stripped of their weapons, and sent back through the jungle, a living message that Zyra 9 was not a place to be taken lightly. When the battle was over, the tribe gathered around Alex and Rena, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. Rena stepped forward, raising her hand in a gesture of thanks, a silent acknowledgement of the strength they had drawn from each other. She looked at Alex, her gaze softened, and placed her hand on his chest, a gesture that signified more than he could fully comprehend. In her eyes, he saw a reflection of his own journey, a journey that had transformed him from a man discarded by his own people into a protector, an equal. As the tribe began the ritual to honor the spirits of the jungle, Alex joined them, following Rena's movements as she led the ceremony. Together, they chanted, their voices rising and falling like the pulse of the jungle itself. It was a moment of unity, of reverence for the land that had sheltered them and the people who had shared its secrets with him. In the days that followed, Alex found himself a permanent part of the tribe, no longer a stranger but a welcomed member of their world. Rena and he grew closer, their bond deepening beyond words, rooted in the respect they had earned together and the life they now shared. She taught him the deeper meanings behind their rituals, their customs, and he became more than just a survivor in the jungle. He became a guardian of it, a man who had found his true home. Occasionally, he would think of the world he had left behind, the council that had exiled him, and the life he had once lived. But those thoughts grew faint, eclipsed by the peace he had found in the jungle, in the people who had accepted him, and in the woman who had become his partner, his guide, his equal. As he stood beside Rena one evening, watching the sun set over the vast, green horizon of Zyra 9, he felt a quiet contentment settle over him. He was no longer a soldier without a cause, a man cast aside by a corrupt system. He was part of something greater, a defender of a world that was as fierce as it was beautiful. And with Rena by his side, he knew that together, they would protect their home, honoring the land and each other with every dawn that broke over the jungle's ancient trees.